frontier of regenerative medicine, a conversation with StemRx on autism care. With me in the studio today is Dr. Pradip Mahajan. Doctor, you're welcome to the session.
Thank you.
Hello, so I promise it's going to be an informative and educative session. So stay tuned as we take you through the world of cell-based therapies in modern medicine. Okay, so Dr. Pradip is the founder, chairman, and managing director of StemRx Hospital and Research Center, Rabale, Belapur Road in Navi Mumbai. Navi Mumbai is a city in Maharashtra, a state in India. So I remain your host today. My name is Glory Edet. Okay, so we'll go straight to the questions we have for you for today. So StemRx Hospital and Research Center has gained significant attention for its work in regenerative medicine. Okay, so particularly in the area of stem cell therapy, that's more of the cell-based therapy. Can you tell us, by giving us an overview of StemRx core values and philosophy?
Just an introduction on the research, what we do at StemRx, particularly based on smart technologies and regenerative medicine. The mission of StemRx to reach out to bring the solutions to the unmet needs. Because as a philosophical doctor, I used to practice in allopathic science. As a surgeon, I'm still as a professor in medical school, working on a profile of as an honorary professor of surgery. That's my designation. I also work with the University of Maharashtra as a faculty to develop the regenerative medicine and stem cells for undergrad and postgrad doctors to teach them the basic human biology and help them to relate between the biological process in the body and the disease profile, how they develop, and then translate into clinical aspect for therapies. I also done for this particular work on, particularly if you can talk of Diplomat of Board of America. Now this is very important for you because I have done my research both in India as well as US at the both part of the world. A part which is, you can say, developed or developing and most developed. So this gives me an opportunity to share you the philosophy of stem cells and regenerative medicine or StemRx, why we developed this. Being a surgeon, I always had a challenge to look into patients who have problems, and those I could find out the challenge not to be treatable by standard medical methods or therapies. So there was a challenge why we are unable to treat these kind of conditions, like you can say metabolic disorders, cardiac functions like hypertension, ischemic heart disease, then myopathies, more so neurological problems in the pediatric children for developmental problems or genetic problems. If you can name them, there are many of them are there. But focusing on those common conditions, autism, cerebral palsy, ADHD, and working on advanced conditions, degenerative conditions, Parkinson, diabetes, cancers, developmental disorders, autoimmune conditions. These are the basic big challenges. So my philosophy was focusing on how do we look in this disease as a molecular science? What is happening exactly? Why my billion-dollar drugs are not helping there? And I have to ask question to myself. Are we perfect in our science? What we are doing is the right way of treatment. So the treatment which we were working now, particularly standard care, is to kill the cells, to eliminate the cells.
That's the dead cells.
And treat the signs and symptoms. So that is not the way of treatment to eliminate the disease or cure the disease.
Okay.
Being the processes of disease, they start at molecular level, DNA level, genetically, proteomically, and the question remains, am I targeting those So I started reverse thinking engineering completely. Yes, I'm reducing diabetes. I'm only reducing peripheral sugar. The process of having the metabolic disorder developed in the pancreas and liver is something different.
That's true.
Autism, all the drugs I'm using is to mask the symptoms. Risperidone, all these drugs, they work on controlling the symptoms. But the pathology happening to lead to these symptoms is different than ADHD, then Parkinson, Alzheimer, talk of autoimmune disease. I was trying to target the cells.
Okay.
But life is not like that. I was little innovative from beginning, and disruption is my brain. Go beyond what people cannot think. So disruptive, innovative nature of mind started thinking in a different direction. May I look into cell what's happening? May I look metabolic functions of the cell? What is happening there? And that is why my philosophy of targeting unmet needs started a big journey somewhere 7, 8, 10 years before.
Okay.
And then I started going to the rules code of molecular science. So my passion or philosophy led me a mission. How do I do all these things now? So I started my own training programs. I developed myself qualifications at different level. Today I'm in a PhD guide even. Though I'm not a biotech person, I'm a medical doctor, but your work comes out. So these two, my passion and mission, made the spark of developing smart technology StemRx. And we started reaching out every angle of cell function. And let me tell you today, my work in the lab has translated many of the molecules, many of the therapies, many of the scientific tools in the lab to the benches now. That's what is a really beautiful journey.
Yes.
And when you work on such science, which doesn't give solution to the standard practicing people, you get mind-blowing. You get a different taste of life. That's why now this subject has become for StemRx to my eyes and baby with passion. So we work to see out unmet need as a challenge for the world, but we create the solutions that unmet need at StemRx.
Thank you so much. It's been very good. Okay, so that is what inspired the slogan, you carry your tool, your work tool in your body, right?
Yes.
I love
if
that.
you see the tagline,
Yeah.
you carry your repairing tools in your body. You carry your tools in your body.
Body.
Do you understand?
I understand it to some extent. What I understand in that statement means that whatever illness, whatever sickness there is, it's actually the repair tools is also in the same system. That could be.
I'll make it more easy for you.
Okay.
Remember, your body is constantly in the process of repairing. That repair is not only physically seen, it starts from the molecular level.
Yeah.
From a DNA, gene, phagocytosis, and all those autophagy, senescent cells, all those processes which come in, even DNA disintegration, you're repairing your DNA, then itself the systems are established in the body. Now, if anything is happening naturally in the body, that's the job I do. The repairing systems in the body, which are already existing, I backward engineering. I do backward engineering on that. And that backward engineering gives me solutions to all these problems.
Okay, so from StemRx perspective, what are the underlying biological mechanisms in autism that you believe stem cell and regenerative medicine are addressing?
In fact, autism has become a global picture. I remember still, 50 years before, this subject was never known to people.
That's true.
In last 25 years, the studies of autism to understand the social status, the statistic in the society, what is the ratio? It was around maybe 4 to 5, 5 to 6 per thousand. Today, It has crossed more than 10 to 12.
That's true.
In fact, I have seen some of the families, there are 2, 3, 4 of the entire family is autistic. It's a very horrible picture. There are 2 concepts for me. One is infertility. Not having a baby is painful. But having a disabled baby is still more pain. If you not have, there is small pain. You can bear it.
Especially in cases where the couple have to wait for a long time for the baby.
And then you have a baby
disabled,
which has a disability. And that too, not correctable. The entire concept of autism was a black box. Still, there are theories, concepts, ideas. People talk about it, but none of a definitive protocol has been still defined. Neither in the textbook, neither research people, nor in the. So all of them think, I give the stem cell and baby will improve. It's a myth. One cannot understand how I can push the stem cell and brain gets repaired. When, what is a pathology we don't know, and how it's going to repair. So what we did at StemRx, the philosophy, is to explore, find out various pathways, various channels, various molecular reactions, various mitochondrial functions, neuroinflammation, bacteriology role or microbiome role, environmental factor, genetic factor, and most important, the neuroinflammation which comes in the picture. So we did a lot of research on this, and we came to the conclusion it is a multidimensional condition. It's not a disease, basically. It's a developmental problem. Many of the people talk of diagnosis of autism. We are diagnosed. It is not a diagnosed. There is no single test in the world today which can diagnose it is autism. Nowadays, there are coming some factors to elaborate some inflammatory factors in the brain or peripheral circulation. But those are also not definitive because it may cause an autism. But there are standard correlations have been established at StemRx, like gut-brain axis, which plays a major role. Hypoxic injuries plays a major role. Inflammations caused because of viral. Post-vaccination, trauma, heavy metal, all these what I spoke are the probable causes we talk about, including genetics. But none of them definitely prove. But beauty of StemRx is that what we have done, let me have 10 causes. But what is the exact pathology taking place there? Whether you come by hypoxia, whether you come by microbial infection, whether you come by gut-brain axis, whether you come from heavy metal, whether you come by genetics, the basic pathology is loss of mitochondrial function or mitochondrial dysfunction. So we made a lot of different protocols, upgraded what we started. Today StemRx have come with a different program. So this background of autism we want to reach to the people, or for the reason there are myths, there are mistaken concepts, families are burning.
That's true.
They are losing their concept of making a family, and the generations are painful. So I came out with a beautiful, defined scientific protocol which gives an assessment to the final result in a stipulated time period, that to 20 to 30 days.
So we'll come to the protocol much later, but for now, let's take this question. Could you elaborate on the specific types of cell-based and regenerative therapies that StemRx primarily utilizes in its autism protocols?
But let me tell you, since there are all the children of autism, they fall into a syndrome spectrum.
Yes.
So even if I talk so big things of knowing the disease, knowing explanation of the treatment protocols, even I say the final molecular changes which are taking, how the synaptic connections are bruised, how the synaptic connections to be connected. But beauty of science is that here in autism, diversity is very big in the symptoms.
That's true.
That's the reason we put into spectrum.
Okay.
The spectrum says no single child of autism has got the same symptoms. No same signs.
Okay.
This is a big challenge again. Though I'm talking of all these things, but it's not so easy job. because the science is diversified here.
Okay.
We call diversity of symptoms under one syndrome, but only common thing is that loss of synaptic connections, mitochondrial dysfunction.
Okay.
Common thing in all the symptoms. Now, what we look into to define the brain mapping, which cortical areas of the brain, which midbrain, which centers of the brain are getting into symptoms of getting to cause of neuroinflammation. That is where the synaptic connections are, not all the brain. So the mapping of the brain plays a major role. So once we map that, we know A area, B area, like striatum you can take, midbrain you can take, cortical brain you can take. All those we put into a mapping zone and then come out a solution. Yes, this area which is showing neuroinflammation, which may be showing hypometabolic function. And hypometabolic function shows the losing of synaptic connections. Synaptic connections are between the dendrite and the axonal connection, which takes the information, electrical impulses, and converts into chemical impulses like neurotransmitters and passes on to cell. And again, it converts. It's a very complex process. And all this require a huge amount of energy. That comes from mitochondria. Inflammation does not allow to work. So we have defined such a beautiful protocol for this using StemRx.
Okay.
Each step we go with the targets of various causes and then see that this synaptic connection establishes. So cell therapies what we use are autologous. Also sometimes we use donor cells. Not only this part, we also use specific type of exon. We also use sometimes specific for growth factors. We also use neurons which are firing. There's a saying that either you fire or disappear. Together you fire, together you disappear. Is a theme for neurons which has been taught years together in science, in medical school.
Okay.
So knowing that firing is important to translate the electrical energy into chemical, neurotransmitters, and then back to electrical, so the information is properly transferred. So we use microcurrents, which are based on your scalp cell surface and magnetic resonances. So there are many technologies which are developed, which can work on this kind of concept. From detox, mapping, providing high pressure oxygen to neurogenesis to neuroplasticity using these peptides, growth factor, and cell-based therapy remains a core center. And mitochondrial dysfunction is the core center. So we have technologies using progenitor neural cells. We have technologies where used preferably, if my experience is, if I use more so placental cells, which has a higher immunomodulatory function.
Yes.
But people talk of even CT. Everybody has got their own function. But StemRx is a very defined protocol. And I'm confident when I talk, this child has to change in 15 days, he will.
Okay, thank you so much. So beyond cell therapy, what other complementary therapies or interventions are there integrated into your treatment protocols?
So the entire concept of autism as a treatment part or therapy part is an integrated program. The integrated program does mean it uses all possible causes as a source of treatment and mitochondrial dysfunction correction. As I was mentioning, the complementary treatments will come from electrical field, microelectrical field, micromagnetic devices, resonance, lasers, photomodulation, detoxification, gut treatment completely, holo with FMT, so that we can break the gut-brain axis, which goes through autonomic system. Then we work on various neuropeptides. These are the complementary treatments. And also we use devices which can change the microcurrent of the end brain. So, Abhishek did an earthquake. The buildings are falling, right? No problems. Come on.
Do you believe these components work synergistically? Do you believe that these components, that's the complementary therapies you're talking about, do you believe they work synergistically to manage the syndrome?
If I have given you the processes right now, means I have already proven in my lab.
Okay.
And I have also drafted some research papers on this.
Good.
Particularly microbiome related. We already published 2 papers on this.
Okay.
So they are the basic factors which are responsible to develop the autism.
Okay. So which journal can we see the publications?
You can see some PubMed journals are there. There are good national journals are there.
Okay.
Some other institutional journals are there. As well, we are one of the filing of patent on this technology.
Thank you so much, Doctor. So the next question is the global scientific community. Okay. Regulatory bodies like European Medicine Agency, Indian Council of Medical Research, they often advise caution regarding unproven stem cell therapies, particularly for conditions like autism, citing a need for rigorous clinical trials. So could you share details about the clinical trial data or robust scientific evidence that supports StemRx approach to autism care?
All clinical trials ask the first safety, and basically in autologous therapies there are 2-3 concepts. One is transplanting the cells from one part to other part is an autologous concept. Homologous concept, cells transplanting from the one part of the organ to the same part of the organ. Like suppose I use cells from the bone marrow, transplanting to any organ related to skeletal muscular system is homologous. Autologous is suppose I am using bone marrow for some other part of the body, which is already done, like fat grafting. We take a fat from here, we graft it somewhere with cosmetic. Right? Similarly, the systems what we here do is bone marrow in a single surgical process of harvesting, isolating the cells, and transplanting in the same theater procedure comes under regulatory format. So 90% of the work works here in a regulatory frame. And this is not here in global regulatory system.
Okay.
Second part, there is an consent application and institutional ethical boards, review boards.
Okay.
Under the unmet need, we can take an approval for 5 patients trial for the safety and efficacy and submit the data. As per, if you see, Japan, this data could be submitted to their health department, and if you prove it is safety and efficacy, the government gives a license for further treatment in some other countries. So, looking at the framework, what you said is true, unethical or unknown treatments or unproven treatments. Yes, it was 5 years before. It was 10 years before. You got to understand. Now, regulations are almost taking proper shape.
Okay.
Those shapes added to the proven alternative methods which I told you, like integrating systems.
Okay.
Those are already proven systems. Like lasers are proven. HBOT is proven. Gut microbiome is proven. The transcranial systems are proven for all epilepsy and all those things. How to bring them under one roof in a scientific way is one most important.
What scientific outcome or improvements do you typically observe in autistic individual undergoing treatment at StemRx?
Looking at the globe and StemRx, the clinical improvements we are sure to see within 10 days. Whether it's a hyperactivity, whether it's speech problems, the socializing problems, the eye contact, take off in India. You can see gradual changes coming by 20-25 days. The child from a 0 to 10 grade goes to at least 2 grade or 3 grade. This itself is a big confidence for the parents and the doctor. Yes, we are on the right path of the treatment. we put into a specialization program and a graph, pre and post graph.
How long does this treatment session last?
So at StemRx, we have defined some short programs of 10 days,
Okay.
some mid programs of 15 days, and some 20 days programs.
For many neurodevelopmental conditions, the placebo effect can be significant. How does StemRx account for or mitigate the placebo
Yes,
effect in its assessment? And what steps are taken to ensure that the observed improvements are genuinely attributed to the regenerative?
See, this is a beautiful question for the clinician and for the mother parents also. If you see some of the autistic children, in my opinion, the usually intellectual functions which are affected are around 2 years to 4 years. Now, this is called a developmental phase, milestones. This is a milestone period where the brain is developing synaptic connections and myelination, two important functions. If you look into these important functions, if we catch them properly in the treatment program, you can target those improvements in those children. Now, you have a big challenge to understand it's a placebo effect or natural effect and what is the role of stem cell or repairing system there.
Yes.
Remember, one is milestone. Milestone indicates that there is a natural process of synaptic connections, natural process of myelination in this period is happening. So some of the children rarely can show not as a placebo effect, but the natural progressive improvement because of certain therapies over a period of time.
Okay.
But this takes a time for 10 years, 5 years, the improvements you can see for 5 to 10%, not beyond. Beyond that improvement is your scientific improvement using this StemRx sandwich protocol.
Yes, that is. Thank you so much. Okay, so what ethical guidelines and principles does StemRx adhere to in its practice? I'm asking this particularly because of the international patients' concerns, realistic expectations, and transparency regarding potential risks.
Safety we have already proven in these cases. As far as regulatory powers we concern, we have a consent form and regulatory interview form before we start the treatment. We always mention these are investigation treatments.
Okay.
And we put in the category of consent taking as unmet need.
Okay.
And we get approved from the ethical committee of ours, Institute Ethical Committee.
Okay.
And then the children goes into the treatment. Otherwise, there's an international forum, I don't remember the consent of that. It is based on certain WHO's obligatory processes. If I collect the system's name, consent name, I'll tell you. Here, you have a right as an unmet need when you don't have any other source of treatment. The patient has a right to select the investigation treatment because patient has a desire to live, not to die.
That's true.
So you have a choice to select investigation treatment
Okay.
with the proper consent and informed consent. The investigation treatment. Coming into approval and the ethical committees.
So patient safety is paramount. What are the potential risks or adverse effects associated with stem cell therapies you administer for autism? And what measures does StemRx have in place to ensure patient safety and manage any complication that may arise during the treatment? Okay.
So remember one thing, as in safety, we always inform to the parents the possibilities of happening a mild fever, headache, or sometimes little jerks. Beyond that, in at least my 10 years career, I have not seen anything else.
Okay.
Second part, when we look into this treatment, adult stem cells, when you use allogeneic source, they don't stay in your body. They go apoptic, they die away. So there is no question of this cell homing in your body. Autologous cells are 200% safe because they belong to your body. And there's only a change of location they have to use for the repair.
Given the significant financial investments families often make in novel therapies, how does StemRx ensure that families are fully informed about the current scientific consensus, the experimental nature, if applicable, of some treatments and the financial commitment involved, allowing for truly informed decision making, especially families watching us from Africa, the Americas, and the rest of the world?
This is a beautiful question for you. See, we have a system here where we have video conferences, VCs.
Okay.
Before the patient takes a informed consent, every question, every possible their intelligent questions or even nonsense question, I would say that, we address them to the extent they should understand the meaning of it.
Okay.
We take a video consent also before we put into an investigation treatment of this kind. Make the possible side effects to them. See, also we give the outcome picture to them on a pie graph or a bar graph.
Okay.
Where we state that today's stature is from 0 to 10 scale, we are at 0, where we'll reach. That's the very important part. And we plan and also we involve the parents into entire therapeutic process. Plus, we have one system is StemRx, or e-learning portal, where in spite you go back to your countries, international from African country, we support them online, a monthly conference meet, access to all the training programs from our e-learning processes and videos, so that the process of learning when you go home is on process going on. We provide them certain peptides, growth factors to continue at home, and also growth factors, which can continue at home for them. So this is how a long-term connectivity, upgrading, continuous e-learning process to the parents and children is maintained till the child becomes ideal. Becomes ideal means activities for daily living come to the child. This is what the entire program. So the treatment after it, my international patients are not left at the mercy of God.
That's great and encouraging. So what are the next frontiers for StemRx in stem cell therapy and regenerative medicine, particularly in the context of neurodevelopmental disorders? Where do you see this field in the next 5 years?
Next 5 years, I have to explain you the way they are going to be there, remember.
Okay.
I still remember 10 years before I used to say, it's a time to come together to rewrite the textbooks of medicine. It's a time together to understand the physiology and pathological changes coming in the disease processes. So next 5 years, I will see StemRx coming out with a huge number of definitive procedures and protocols working on neurodegenerative and neurodevelopment as well. Because most of the studies show that what is the problem now. And in my opinion, if you ask, I would say rather 80 to 90% effect is related to mitochondrial dysfunction in all neurodevelopmental and degenerative conditions.
That's true.
So, StemRx has added this powerful program into mitochondrial transfusion, plus recharging the batteries of mitochondria in the neurons using a very high-end technology. It's a microinfusion technology, so as the mitochondrials get charged in the brain. This is the future what we are looking. And 5 years down the line, if you ask me, most of the incurable disease, which used to think in 5 years before, will be having a wonderful therapies, treatments, and a life view with the mindfulness of life, without having a fear of having neurological disease.
Okay.
Even aging disease, I would say.
Okay. So are you expecting to use this modern technology into containing other diseases apart from the disorder?
Yes, basically what happens, the concept of body repair system doesn't remain to neuron. It comes to musculoskeletal system, bone repairing systems, spine repairing systems, organs like kidney, liver repairing system, myocardial repairing system, then muscular disease system, genetic disease system, autoimmune disease, cancers, are all different 80 disease protocols are developed at StemRx. So you don't have to say, if I can repair brain, I can only repair brain. It's okay. One brain is repaired, means similar repair can system in other organs also. We explore those things and bring in that possible causes for most of them.
It's been a wonderful session, Doctor. So finally, Dr. Mahajan, on a personal note, what drives your passion and commitment to pioneering this regenerative medicine?
In fact, whoever meets me, both from the professional field, from the research as well as medical line, as well as the patients and researchers, they always say, this man is a passionate. He's a crazy guy. For every disease, he'll come out with a solution. The reason is that it keeps me driving force when I bring a solution for unmet needs. When the world could not do, and you have done it, it's a great passion in the mind. Yes, we can do much more, and see the happiness in the people's face. The family's happiness. If we can change the families, don't you think it should be a very passionate driving force?
Yes.
So that helps me. And it has become now a driving power of my life.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Doctor. It's been an insightful section, and we've gotten, because you talked about myth. Like currently, we still have this challenge in Africa where people don't understand the root cause of autism.
Yes.
They don't believe it's a medical condition which should be given attention. So they believe it's more of spiritual. Okay, so in summary, what do you have to say mainly to the African population or audience regarding autism?
This is a very good message which I would like to give to the entire African country. As you said, people think it is something spiritually related, and they do some kind of big kind of programs or some kind of rituals thinking that our children will improve. But it's a myth and misguidance to the poor population. So on the contrary, Gloria, I would request you to reach to the people of every corner of Africa, motivate them, energize them to understand the subject. For the reason, the most successful in the world, people in the world are autistic. Most successful people, Darwin, you can take currently, even Bill Gates you can take, Elon Musk you can take, Mozart from the musician from the Europe. The autistic population. Beauty is that I put into autism and autism. It means these children have a passion of some idea where they're apart from that passion, they are disconnected. So I call them locked children with one view. There only one view works. So that's the beauty. I give a message, you can give this message to the entire continent. Your children can be one of the best learners in the world. Don't treat them or something wrong happened by the nature. There's a defined pathology, defined subject. Come out of that myths, wrong ideas and mistakes of life, and understand the science properly. In fact, if you can reach all of this population, I would love to reach them and guide them. It is not that what you think. I believe this message, which from this interview can reach to every corner of Africa. Think your child is super smart. He's not a fool. He knows what is happening. But unfortunately, his connections in the brain are lost. So he doesn't get that feedback. Good enough? Doesn't get that feedback. The systems are disconnected. So I believe, take this message from me to every family, every corner of Africa, enlighten them, remove those myths and mistakes of thinking, and let them have a chance to have a child, which means a complete family. Not only that, tomorrow this child will be one of the biggest luminary in the sports, in the space, in the science, anywhere it could be, in the music, in the art. Fortunately, if you go to my rehab center downstairs, you will see a library of autistic children doing painting at StemRx. Beautiful paintings. Well, you can imagine. The other reason I use the word autism, when I look at those poster pictures or drawings, I can't believe this has been done by an autistic child. So take this message to the world. I'll be very happy if you can change the community, society in the Africa. You will be a big light of hope for them.
Okay, viewers, thank you so much for staying tuned with us today. Today's topic was mainly on neuro disorders. We hope to come your way next time with other topics regarding your health. And for you watching us, if you have a family member who is autistic, you know someone with an autistic child, we have a message for you. There is hope. Okay, autism is not a curse. It is an art which you can actually live with and live a beautiful life. Thank you once again for staying tuned with us. For more information, you can visit our website. And if you want a one-on-one interview or session with our doctors, you get the details online. Thank you and stay blessed.
Thank you, audience. Thank you, Glory.
Thank you, Doctor.